周一長談生活時事話題，我哋翻嚟繼續同 BC 省嘅財政廳長嚟傾下2017年嘅總預算案。Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Now, we talk about surplus. Let's talk about debt.
Which is an interesting thing because people get confused. How can you have a surplus and a debt at the same time?
I'm confused too. That's why I want those questions. Now, our debt, according to your budget report, has increased actually by 10 billion and up to $43.3 billion. How can you have a surplus and you have a debt? And then when we have such a huge debt, it's increasing by 10 billion. What is the story here? Can you explain and help us understand it?
So here's the story, and people do talk about this, and I understand that elements of it are confusing. I think of it this way. There is the debt that we are responsible for as taxpayers, BC. And there are two parts to that debt. There's one part that I call the grocery tab.
Mm-hmm.
That's money that we've borrowed over the years to pay for services that we couldn't afford. That's deficits, operating deficits. That's called the operating debt. Then there's the other part of the debt, which is the money we've borrowed to build things, hospitals, roads, schools. The good news is we are paying down the operating debt dramatically. We've had an operating debt since 1975 in BC. Within this budget and fiscal plan, we will pay down the operating debt to its lowest point since 1982, and a year after that, we can eliminate the operating debt for the first time in 45 years. Eliminate it entirely. Now, we still borrow money. We borrow money to build things, roads, highways, schools, hospitals. And what I would say about that is, we have, amongst the Canadian provinces, amongst the lowest debt as a percentage of our economy of any jurisdiction. And when I say to people, say, yes, but we still have a debt, and I say to them, yes, but it's manageable and it's at responsible levels, and I'm not sure they believe me.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask them, why is it that British Columbia is the only province that the rating agencies assign a AAA rating to? Because that's what they look at. They look at debt, and they look at your reliability as an economy and as a jurisdiction. Alberta doesn't have a AAA rating. Ontario doesn't. Quebec doesn't. No other province has the highest credit rating in the way that BC does, and that's in large measure because these agencies, who are not political,
mm-hmm.
they don't exist in BC, their sole purpose is to assess our debt from the perspective, from a comparative basis. And they say we are the best in the country in terms of the amount and our reliability as a credit. And I think that's something British Columbians should be proud of. Now, I think we can begin to pay down the overall debt too. We actually did that this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually lower this year than it was last year. But the first thing we need to do is eliminate the operating debt, and we're 3 or 4 years away from doing that.
Now, there's two kind of, one, as you said, debts that used to buy groceries. And if I understand clear, and you can help me understand, because I think it is something that our audience really needs to have a clearer picture on all these terms, debt, yeah. And so is it fair to say that the capital budget, the capital debt that you use you borrow money to build infrastructure, is it something equals to our mortgage?
That's
for instance, at home, we don't borrow money to pay our groceries, to pay our education or entertainment, but we do borrow money for our mortgage to build a home that belongs to us in the future. And so is that how we should look at it in this way, and also to assess, do we have the ability to pay back our mortgage on a steady term?
And how much of our income is dedicated to paying back our mortgage in BC's case, it's a very small amount. It's a very, very small amount, amongst the smallest of all the provinces. So yes, I agree with you. That is the difference between your mortgage and your credit card debt. Credit card debt is a bad thing. And it's a really bad thing if you're using your credit card to pay for the groceries. And we don't do that anymore in BC. We haven't done that in 5 years.
I think I got a clearer picture on all these terms and how you manage the budget. So now the budget process is really a big one. And most people look at the budget, the priority, because the pot is just this big. How you distribute it really reflects on what is in the government's mind, what is important to them. So they all look at that and see what's your priority. And everyone believes that their needs, every advocate, every activist believe what they want is the most important thing. How do you balance that? Because in a simple question is there a process that you follow to try your best to make it fair and take care of the biggest denominator in our province?
Yes, but I don't want to pretend that there isn't an element of subjectivity, and at the end of the day, we bring our political judgment and our priorities. And it's something you said, BC, again, really astute, and it reminded me of why very rarely do you see major tax cuts from governments. And this is not meant to sound as partisan as I'm sure it will, but here's the reason, in part. Because there's always something else you can spend money on. And I don't mean, there's always another good idea. There's always another need. And you really have to make the firm decision that says, actually, even though there are lots of other things to spend the people's money on, this time we're going to give some back. This time we're going to give some money back to the people and let them decide how to spend it. You know, beyond that, you know, we looked at areas in the budget that we thought were high, were high pressure areas. And we want to look after children. We want to look after vulnerable children. We want to look after vulnerable people, people with mental illness. I mean, these are all areas, the environment, these are priority areas that we wanted to look at. We want to make sure we're building infrastructure. But, you know, the other guiding principle this time was we wanted to give $1 billion in tax savings to people. Which brings us back to our original conversation about the MSP reduction.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is something, of course, admirable, but it's I want to come back to the most sensitive things, is that a lot of critics has really criticized that this is so typical a campaign budget, and that it's wait until the last year of this term that you give out all these good news and things like that. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I ask people to look at our record as a government, and even my record as a finance minister. There aren't many finance ministers that have done this twice. We don't have a very long shelf life, you know. But this is the second time that I, as Premier Clark's finance minister, have tabled a pre-election budget. The one in 2013 didn't have a lot of great news. We were struggling to balance the budget, and no one thought we could do it, and no one believed it was balanced. Now, our circumstances are different this year. We're the leading economy in Canada. We're creating more jobs than anywhere else in Canada. More people are coming here than anywhere in Canada. Consumer confidence is higher than anywhere else in Canada. We have the only AAA credit rating in Canada. So our economy is leading the way, which means revenue to government has been on the upswing. Our circumstances today are much better, much stronger than they were 4 years ago prior to that election. And we've decided that in those circumstances, we should share the benefits of that strength with people. But if we are rehired, I always talk about being hired by the people because we work for them. They're the boss, we're the servant.
It's a job review.
It's a job review. It is very much a job review. And if people look at what we've done and look at the budget and look at where we are as a province and decide they want to rehire us, they will see exactly the same budget. They will see the same budget after the election as they've seen now.
Well, I think it's fair that you reminded us to compare this budget and the last pre-election budget. Thank you. I will look at that. That is a good point of comparing how you approach an election with a budget. Now, we have only 2 minutes left. I want to ask a very important question that has been in my mind for a long time. The 15% increase in the real estate transaction tax. When this tax was introduced, it was said that the whole purpose is to calm down the market. And once the market has calmed down, we will reevaluate that 15%. So has you evaluated that the effect of this, the 15%, have you achieved your purpose, and would it go down?
Two parts to your question. The first part, you're right, we're evaluating on an ongoing basis. I think BC, the market, and I think the tax was part of it. I don't think it was the whole story, but I think the tax helped to stabilize and end those rapid escalations. So I think it has done so in a measured way, and I don't think we've seen catastrophic drops in values. So I think it has been it has brought an element of stability. Second part of your question, am I anticipating any changes in the short term? No. We're watching. We're watching what the impact of the tax is on parts of the province outside of Metro Vancouver. We have the ability to change the amount and the geographic region. That's true. But I don't want to leave your viewers with the impression that we're anticipating any changes in the short term.
So the market is stabilized to your satisfaction?
Well, that part of the market has, but I will say this, we've got to build more houses. There's still demand outstripping supply. We've got to get busy and put some more people to work building more houses.
That is another question for our interview in the coming future.
I hope
because
so.
That's a good question. Many argue that the whole housing issue is a matter simply demand and supply. If we can satisfy that, nothing can be done about it. But that's another question, and I will extend my formal invitation for you to come back and talk about this issue.
And I will formally accept and say I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. 周日長談深入時事話題，我哋今日節目到呢處為止。我係林伯佳，BC Lee，下次見。